Hello everybody and welcome back to our channel. This is Christopher Vagale here from Agritech Organics Papua New Guinea Limited, and on this video tutorial I shall be discussing with you what an ICO Crowdsale is, how to create one and deploy smart contracts, and of course the tools that you will need in order to make it all come together. Before we begin, let us discuss what an ICO is. An ICO stands for Initial Coin Offering, and an initial coin offering operates in a similar fashion as would an IPO or initial public offering. Similar to how an IPO operates, whereby shares are offered to the general public in return for finances which a startup will then use to power the initial operations of a company. An ICO operates in a similar way, utilizing smart contracts that are deployed onto the Ethereum virtual machine. What this then allows startups to do is offer tokens or a stake of the company to the general public, which they are able to acquire with the use of Ethereum as a means of payment, which the company then is able to utilize in order to push the company into its next phase of development. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it. So before we begin, there are three essential tools that we will need to have installed before we are able to create our ICO Crowdsale and have them deployed onto the main Ethereum virtual machine. The first of these tools is a tool called Metamask, which, as you can see, is this little icon here at the top right hand corner of my browser. This particular tool is an extension to my Chrome browser, and you can have one installed on yours as well by simply clicking on a new tab, navigating to apps, then to the App Store, and in the search button type in Metamask like so, and then you should have the Metamask extension here, and on your machine you should have an option to add to the Chrome browser. I don't have that option because it is already installed. Just a word of caution: when you do open the MetaMask wallet for the first time, it will ask you for a password and it will also provide you with a seed phrase or your private keys. Make sure you keep these private keys secret. Do not give them to anybody, because if they get into the wrong hands, someone essentially can be able to access your MetaMask e-wallet and tamper with your funds or your tokens, whatever the case may be. So that is our first tool. The second tool that you will need is one called Ganache. This is a local instance of a blockchain which is running on your local host. What this allows us to do, or what this platform comes with, is pre-installed e-wallets, 10 to be exact, all of which come with 100 test ether. So the good thing about this is, aside from the fact that it comes pre-installed, you are able to then use this Ethereum or this test ether to write smart contracts onto the main Ethereum virtual machine and to also test. So I thought this was a very useful platform, and it differs a lot with things like faucets, where in my experience have given me a lot of issues in the past, and also it comes with a good sum of Ethereum, which is more than sufficient for you to create and deploy and test your smart contracts going forward. So that's Ganache. And finally, and probably the most important tool or platform, is the POA Network platform itself. You can access it by clicking on the link above here. What I will do is I will also indicate these links at the bottom of this video, so you will be able to simply click on the link and it should take you to this website. I shall also be indicating a link to a website where you can download Ganache. This is out of the box. Once you have it downloaded, you simply click on it and it will unbox and install onto your local machine. So with all those items or tools installed, we can now proceed to the next phase of our development. The first thing we need to do before we can begin to create our smart contract is to make sure that the Web3.js interface, which is Metamask, is able to see our local blockchain in Ganache. So before we get over to configuring that, let us take a look at the user interface for Ganache, and let me draw your attention to this part here. This is the RPC server. This is what we need to connect to the Metamask interface so that both the Ganache blockchain that is hosted locally is then able to communicate with Metamask. So in order to do that, we head on over to Metamask, click on Networks, Custom Network, and we'll name this network Kumul 1. The RPC was taken from our Ganache interface. We can just keep that as it is and then click on Save. So we've nominated this network, and that should be good to go. Now the second thing we need to do is to import the private keys that is linked to one of the e-wallets on the blockchain, which we shall be using to deploy our smart contracts. So in order to do that, let's head on back over to our Ganache, click on the private key for one of the e-wallets like so, select it, copy it by pressing Ctrl+C, and then head on over back to our Metamask, click on the icon at the top there and go import account, and we simply paste the private keys that we have just copied from Ganache and import. So now, as you can see, it has imported the 100 test ether from our Ganache file. So let us just confirm if this ether is transferable. So let's see how many accounts that we have here. We've got this account. Let us firstly go to there. We can also edit this file and give it a new name like so. Let's call this main. So this will be our main account. Click on the tick, get out of there, and if you click again, we can see it now renamed to main. And we've got another 2 e-wallets here which have 0 ether. What we shall do is, for our purposes, let us test and see if these other wallets work. So let's transfer 10 ether from the main wallet to receiver 1. In order to do that, you will need the e-wallet address for receiver 1. So you click on receiver 1, and then you click on the name of the account, which then copies that e-wallet address. Head on back over to our main account, go to send from your main account, that's by default, and then you simply paste the e-wallet address of the second account, and then head on over to the amount and indicate the amount of ether that you will want to send. So we're sending 10 test ether, and we click on next. It'll ask you to confirm, you confirm, and then the transaction is confirmed. So if you then go back to your MetaMask, click on your account, and you can see that the receiver 1 has received 10 Ethereum. So from this test, we know that everything works well, and this needs to happen and be synchronized first before we go into the next phase of our development. So let's do that now. So now that Ganache and MetaMask are synced, let's get right into developing our smart contract for our Crowdsale. Okay, so if you navigate over to the POA Network platform, you will be met by two buttons. So we are interested with this button on your left, so click on the new Crowdsale button to get started. This will take us to the next tab. You simply just click on continue. This is by default. So this next tab allows us to create a token, its symbol, number of decimal places, how much you would like to reserve for yourself as the startup, either by the number of tokens that will be issued to you or the percentage of the total number of tokens that will be created under this Crowdsale. So let us go back to the top. I'm going to name my token Kumu token. You can name yours whatever you feel you want to name it. The ticker is the symbol that represents the name of the token or the name or the token itself. So I'll call mine KTN. Decimal is represents the number of decimals that a unit is divisible into. I don't want to go into all the nitty-gritties relating to that, but for our purposes and for the purpose of simplicity, let's just make that 2. We're all used to a particular integer followed by 2 zeros after the decimal point, so it just makes it easier. Depending on whatever regime you want to use, you can always adjust this to your own specifications. Okay, so now the reserve token section, what this allows us to do, as I mentioned previously, is to reserve tokens for ourselves as the developer of the ICO. So what we will want to do is we'll head on back to our MetaMask. We are in our main account, like so. We'll click on the account number or the name, and that will copy to our clipboard the e-wallet address, which we will take here and paste. And I normally select percentage, so of the total supply of the Kumu token, the startup will receive 30% of that. And we'll submit it like so, and then we'll click continue to get to the next part of our development. Okay, now we're in the Crowdsale setup itself. What this section does is it contains information regarding to where the money goes to after the investors have actually paid. So we've already indicated that. That's by default. The amount of gas that will be used to power the transactions on the blockchain itself for your smart contract. Let's just keep it by default on the first defaulted selection. Okay, the next heading here is enable whitelisting. What whitelisting does is it allows us to give specific e-wallet addresses for specific individuals that we would like to participate in the Crowdsale, but we don't want to do that. We want this to be available to everybody, so let's just leave it as it is on no. Investor mean cap, what that means is the minimum amount of tokens to buy, as the description says here, not the minimum amount for every transaction. If minimum cap is 1 and the user already has 1 from a previous transaction, they can buy any amount they want. So what this essentially means is that whatever figure we put in here, the investor, so let's keep this at 1. So they can buy 1 token and above. The next section, Crowdsale setup name, let's just leave it as it is, as tier 1. We could call it whatever we want, but and going forward, you're also able to create more than one tier, but for our purposes, let's keep it at one tier. Let's keep the coding as it is. Let's not allow ourselves to get back in there and do any modifications. The starting time by default will give you current date that you're creating this Crowdsale token. Let's leave it at that, and this is the end date of the Crowdsale itself. You can nominate this for whatever period that you wish to have the Crowdsale available and open to the public. The next, let's just keep that by default. So the next section is the rate. What this refers to is how much tokens you will buy with 1 Ethereum. So let's just use the example that's given here as an example. So let's use 100. So what this means is that if an investor pays 1 Ethereum, they will receive 100 tokens. So that's pretty straightforward. The coin supply, let's make this 1 million, and that's basically it. So when you click on continue, it will start to deploy our contract, and you should receive a confirmation in your MetaMask, because as I said previously, I don't know if I mentioned this in this video or not, but when you are writing information onto or making changes to the smart contract, it will cost you Ethereum. So that's why it's asking us, and now that it's linked to our MetaMask, we can confirm, and it will deduct from the amount of Ethereum we have available in our e-wallet. Okay, that's confirmed, and it will go through and do all these things that it's listing here. Just keep an eye on the MetaMask. There will be a number here to indicate that you will need to confirm various transactions. So because all of these tasks here require different elements of the smart contract to be written into the smart contract and onto the Ethereum main platform itself, or the virtual machine, it'll require Ethereum. So that's why you will see every time it accomplishes one task and moves to the next one, they'll ask you to confirm. Expensing Ethereum to make that transaction happen. So we will simply just go through that until the very end. So I'll put this video on pause until I get to the very end, and we can continue from there. Okay, so we have completed writing our smart contract onto the main Ethereum virtual machine. So if you click on that, it will give you a summary of all the code involved with writing the actual smart contract itself for the token and the ICO. You have things like ABIs, which developers are able to use to create web dApps using HTML, and using the APIs to integrate with the bytecode and JavaScript. So as a developer, these are some useful tools that you'll be able to use in order to create a web interface for your ICO Crowdsale. So these are some of the stuff here, a lot of technical stuff, but the good thing about this website is the platform does all this for you, and then all you need to do is just transact. So now that that's done, let's also download a copy of everything that is listed up here. We'll give you all the files containing pretty much the same information that's displayed up here, and then we can continue. Okay, cool. So we have our crowd sale complete. Now if you go to invest, you can see that we have a crowd sale contract address, and we also have an address. Remember, we are deploying two different contracts. One is the contract, smart contract for the development of the token, and one for that dictates how the token will be transacted on the Ethereum virtual machine itself under the crowd sale contract address. So we click on next. Now it's taking us to our ICO page. Now with the code that I showed you previously, developers are able to take all this and create a web interface specifically for this smart contract, but this comes inbuilt with the POA network based on that contract that we just created. So what this page has, it contains information regarding the account, the token address, the crowd sale contract address, the name of our token, the symbol, and the coin supply, the token supply. So as an investor, if I'm an investor, I will go into this platform, and then I will wish now to buy, for example, say 100 tokens. I can do so by just typing in 100 here, and I can contribute. But also bear in mind that in order for you to transact as an investor, you should have also Metamask running on your Chrome browser like so, and it has to be on the appropriate network. Right now we're running it on the Kumo network, which is our test network, but in a real life situation you'll be running off the main Ethereum network using real Ether. So let us test our network and see if our smart contract was deployed and actually does work. So let us buy 100 tokens. So all you need to do is type in 100 in there, and you click on contribute. This one, let's keep it at Metamask because that is the interface we will be using to communicate with our blockchain. So once you put 100 in there, click on contribute, and you'll receive a confirmation up here. Once you click on that, it will confirm that your transaction is complete, like so, and it will update the amount of tokens that have been sold to the public. So this is public information right here. And if you go back to your wallet, you will see that your Ethereum has gone down, and this is the main Ethereum itself. But because you will be purchasing a separate token with its own smart contract address, you can also create a wallet within the Ethereum wallet itself to maintain a record of this particular token. So you can copy the crowd or the token address like so. Copy, head on over to Metamask again, click on this tab going down, and you can add token like so, and you can click on custom token, and you can paste the contract address. And because this is all part of the main Ethereum virtual machine, you will see that it will pull out the symbol and the amount of decimals that is applicable for this symbol. And once you click on OK, then it will display it as a token representative of this symbol and the amount of tokens that you have purchased under the crowd sale. So all that is left to do is click on the add tokens button at the bottom, and it will transfer ownership into a separate wallet containing tokens relating to that particular smart contract on the part of the investor. So you can see that there when you click on the main menu, you have your main Ethereum wallet and the tokens that you also have accumulated underneath that ICO Crowdsale. So there you go. So we've created our first ever ICO Crowdsale smart contract and deployed it onto the test blockchain, and we were able to purchase some of the tokens under the crowd sale itself. So I think from this video we should have an understanding of basically what an ICO is, how it operates, and the technologies or tools that we will need in order to make everything happen. Now, to recap, the tools that we will need are, again, firstly, the Metamask account, which you should have running as an extension on your Chrome browser. Secondly, the localized blockchain in Ganache. And finally, the POA network itself, which we are able to utilize to create the specifics of our ICO Crowdsale smart contract. So in our next video, we shall be using some of the code that was generated from this one in order to create a decentralized application, or DApp, on a web platform that will allow us to do the same thing. So look forward to seeing you all in our next video. If you found this video informative, please click on the like button below, subscribe to our channel, and we look forward to seeing you in our next video. Good night and God bless.